As a nobleman, I have offered my life to my country so that the bowels of history may remember me for the man that I am. I will be remembered as a man of dignity, a man of nobility, a man of... Hey! Hey, yo! Hey, yo! I'm a bit busy here if you can't tell. You're a bitch! I'm sorry, what? Your mother! Somebody get me a goddamn sword so I can f***ing kill this man.
Throughout history, men have always had their differences, and sometimes these problems couldn't be handled with just words. This could happen in the form of insults, threats, or even claims that someone was boinking their own mother, which I mean, come on, how is anybody gonna be able to just talk that shit out? Nowadays, we would settle this with a little Twitter argument and some nice shit posting of memes. However, before the internet, that wasn't exactly a possibility, so people did the next best thing. They fought each other to the death. This lovely situation was known as a duel. They came in many different forms and styles, but most famously, duels were handled with swords and pistols. In other words, this is why women live longer. But who needs to live long when you're a badass? You've probably seen movies where two opponents face off using dramatic moves and long-winded commentary about how desperately they want to end their enemies' lives. However, in reality, most of these duels end up being pretty quick and pretty stupid, with little to no skill involved. Some of the best are even just a dude pulling what we would call today a bullshit cheese. So we're going to talk about some of the best examples of cowardly and stupid duels throughout history. I'm Ryan Blunt, and welcome to the session. So like I said before, these duels were settled with swords and pistols, but I want to just preface this by saying that one of those is exponentially worse than the other. Cause yeah, it would suck to get shot by some dude who just called your girlfriend a bitch, but can you even imagine the horror that it would be getting stabbed to death while dozens of bystanders watch and cheer? Well, that was like the main way we settled arguments for most of history. Pretty wild. But let's talk about one of the funny ones. It's France, midway through the 1500s. Flushable toilets just hit the market and are all the rage. You're living large, taking a day out on the town to see what the locals are up to, when suddenly, a bunch of soot-covered French children approach. One points at you while looking at the others and exclaiming, "That is the guy that bangs his mom!"
Any units in the area, please could you respond? I was assaulted by a minor. I had no choice. I drew my gun.
Why would that little twerp say something so messed up about you that's barely even true for the time period? What is one even to do in this conundrum? Well, for a man known as Guy Genac, this very scenario played out for him, and the man who had started the rumor happened to be a very wealthy noble by the name of Francois de Vivant. God, those names are so French it makes me want to just smoke a cigarette. But Genac wasn't going to let this transgression go unpunished, and so his solution was to petition the king of the time to allow for a duel. To the death. But the king said no. So he petitioned again, and then got another no. This happened dozens of times over the next year. Each time Genac would beg for a chance to regain his honor and kill Francois, and every time the king would say, "Dude, if I let you do this, you are going to fucking die." That's because Francois was so much more skilled in combat than Genac. How much more skilled, you asked? Well, to give some context, Genac had never even been formally trained in swordsmanship, whereas Francois was so renowned in the world of dueling, he was considered to be one of the best of the era. Dude would go into a duel against someone in full plate armor and then plow them to the ground before manhandling them and violently, well, if you don't understand how crazy that is, then you don't understand how OP full plate armor is. That is like a foot soldier literally taking down a panzer tank with a Bowie knife. It's fucking insane. But anyways, after about a year of petitioning for the chance to duel and getting shot down for his own good, the king died and was replaced with a new king who said, "F it, this'll be fun. You got 1 month to prepare." To which Janak reacted to by shitting his pants, now coming to realize he is going to have to face one of the greatest living combatants of the era, and he hadn't even taken any time in the last year to, train or learn anything. Bro was just gonna wing it, and it wasn't until now that he realized that was probably a bad idea. Panicked on what to do, he tried stalling for time. He tried everything from petitioning for a delay on the match, which was quickly denied, to arguing over what weapon to use. You see, there was an old rule in Duels where both combatants had to agree on what weapon would be used. So Janak tried his best to find a weapon that Francois did not know how to use. He tried this 30 times, but every time, Francois would just be like, "Yeah, bud, I can take you with that. Let's do it." With it really starting to hit that there was no way out of this, Janak decided that he had better get a trainer so he could at least stand a chance. So he sought out one specific teacher, one who would teach him a very special move that at the very least would give him a fighting chance. For the following month, Janak trained in the mountains, mastering the special move while Francois partied it up and drank away the days, until finally the date of the duel arrived. Both men took their swords, and they stood at the ready. Then, the battle began. Janak screamed, charged forward, stabbed Francois in the calf, and then stood over him and stabbed him to death. Many times. In total, the fight lasted about 10 seconds. Yeah, this was the secret special move Janak had spent the last month learning. Sprinting forward, then stabbing them in the leg, and then to death. Why did Francois not counter this or fight back? Well, that specific move is considered so cowardly, so downright evil and nasty to use, that he hadn't even trained to protect himself against it. But Janak did not give a flying fuck. Dude said, "Tell someone I banged my mom again." "Oh, what, you can't? 'Cause I stabbed you in the fucking leg? That's right, bitch. That's what you get." I think he is dead. "Do not ruin this for me, motherfucker, or you're next." But hey, no one ever accused him of boinking his old bum again, and this specific move would go on to be named after him. So I guess everything worked out in the end. Except for Francois. Francois is very, very dead. Moving on, let's head over to Japan in the early 1600s. The age of samurais has passed, and those who were once recognized as heroes of the land are now slowly becoming outcasts, seeking memories of a simpler time. However, there are those who wish to preserve the culture. One man, considered a giant standing at 6'5", starts a school to train the next generation in this ancient craft. This samurai's name was Sasaki Kojiro, and he was a force to be reckoned with, wielding a massively long sword to match his stature. He even had developed his own technique known as the crane, where he lifted his sword above his head using similar movements to the bird in order to decapitate his enemies. He was considered to be the best living samurai of the time. On the other side of this ongoing crisis, there stands another man, a ronin, a samurai who walks with no master, one who lives only to fight for a glimpse of glory long since past. But all the more, he is the only one the entire continent believes can even hold a flame to Kojiro, using a sword in each hand to pull off wild techniques that always left him the victor. His name?
Miyamoto Musashi.
But two such men cannot simultaneously live within the same world, and so Musashi requested a duel between the two. They were to meet on a beach near Kojiro's temple when the sun was high in the sky. There, they would duel. To the death. Kojiro waited on the beach, perfectly on time, ready for battle, but Musashi wasn't there. So Kojiro figured he might be slightly late. Then 3 hours passed, and Kojiro was about ready to blow a fuse. Musashi finally arrived, dirty, hair in a mess, beard growing out, and looking like he had just crawled out of a dumpster. On top of that, he didn't even have a sword with him. Just an oar from the boat that he had haphazardly whittled into a sword-looking thing. Sick of his shit, Kojiro pulled out his sword and, using his crane technique, swung for Musashi's head. But Musashi was quick. He dodged out of the way and leapt between the water and his opponent, the sun now at his back, blinding Kojiro. He ran forward and, using his big old stick, whapped the samurai in the side of the head so hard that he just died.
Nope.
Yep, just fell over, dead, right there. Best samurai in the world just got killed by a homeless dude with a boat paddle. Now, a lot of people like to point out that Masashi had planned this and that he was like a genius tactician who used cunning to win rather than just relying on strength. But like, dude, he smacked a guy with a long stick while the dude was blind. If you ask me, that's a cheese. Kojiro showed up with all his buddies, he was ready to go head to head, and Masashi was just like, yeah, but what if I just like turned all the odds in my favor? Like, had this been a respectful duel, the students of Kojiro who are watching this all go down would have probably scooped him up, paid their respects to the victor, and moved along. But instead, Masashi had to dip out like he owed them drug money because everyone was so pissed that he used such cowardly tactics to win. And that, sir, is why, despite being a bit of a historical badass, Masashi gets stuck here on the list of our cowardly duelists. Last on our list, we're gonna pop down to the good US of A to finish off with a friendship turned bitter rivalry. For those of you who saw the play Hamilton, well, I'm sorry. But for those of you who didn't, you probably haven't heard of this unless you actually paid attention in history class, or as I like to call it, 45-minute nap time. If you didn't know, Alexander Hamilton was the dude who pretty much designed America's financial system, which you might hate him today if you see how that's being used. But back in the way back when, that was kind of a big reason our country, worked. He had a best buddy named Aaron Burr, who was also into a lot of political stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the specifics. You're here to listen to stories about guys getting killed, not colonial politics. All you need to know is that they fought in a war together, became best friends, worked together for a long time, had some personal differences. Eventually, Burr ran for governor of New York, and Hamilton was like, don't vote for this guy. He likes to switch sides, and he's kind of a dick. To which Burr was like, let's shoot at each other. So that's what they did. They met on a hill with a big old tree on it, and had this kind of pissing match of sorts. You see, Hamilton wasn't crazy. He didn't want to kill his old friend. He just wanted to teach him a lesson and get him to call his bluff on the challenge of a duel. So when he took his shot, he purposely aimed high and hit the tree branch above Burr. Burr, however, as mentioned before, was kind of a dick. So after seeing that his longtime friend had taken his turn and spared him, he shot him in the chest a couple inches away from his spine, which killed him like a day later. So yeah, Burr didn't get that governor position. I wonder why. So what did we learn in the end? Maybe that trying to use our words to solve our problems might be a better solution than using deadly force. Probably that petty differences shouldn't result in the loss of mostly innocent lives. And definitely that if you're going to commit murder to settle an argument, don't run for governor. Run for president. But yeah, that was the most cowardly and stupid duels of history. If you know any other ones you'd like me to possibly make a second video on, let's hear about it in the comments, and let me know what you thought about these ones. I hope you enjoyed the session. Until next time, my friends, stay toasty.